The accidental meeting. The soft glow of chandeliers cast warm shadows across the marble floors of La Bernardine, one of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurants. Sophia Chen adjusted her vintage dress nervously, the fabric slightly worn but still elegant. Her best friend Riley had insisted she go on this blind date, claiming that David from accounting was perfect for her. Sophia clutched her phone, reading the text message again. Table 12. Wearing a blue tie. Can't wait to meet you. She scanned the restaurant, her eyes landing on a man in a navy suit sitting alone at table 12. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and he seemed engrossed in his phone. Taking a deep breath, Sophia approached the table. David, I'm Sophia, Riley's friend, she said with a bright smile. Sliding into the chair across from him, James Wellington looked up, startled. He had been waiting for his business partner to discuss their latest tech acquisition, but the meeting had just been cancelled. The woman sitting across from him had the most genuine smile he had seen in months. Her eyes sparkled with nervous energy, and something about her authenticity made him pause. I think there might be some confusion, James began, but Sophia was already talking. Oh, I know this is awkward. Blind dates are so weird, right? Riley told me you might be shy, so don't worry. I talk enough for both of us. She laughed, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. James found himself captivated by her openness. In his world of corporate mergers and calculated conversations, everyone wanted something from him. This woman seemed refreshingly different. He decided to play along, curious to see where this accidental meeting would lead. Right, blind dates, he said, his lips curving into a small smile. They certainly are something. Sophia relaxed slightly, taking a sip of water. So Riley mentioned you work in accounting. That must be interesting, dealing with numbers all day. Actually, I work more in technology, James replied carefully. Software development, that sort of thing. That's so cool. I'm terrible with computers. I'm more of an analog person, I guess. I work at a small art gallery downtown, and I paint in my spare time. Sophia's eyes lit up as she spoke about her passion. James leaned forward, genuinely interested. What kind of paintings? Mostly cityscapes and portraits. Nothing fancy, just things that inspire me. I dream of having my own exhibition someday, but that feels impossible right now. She shrugged, her honesty refreshing. The conversation flowed naturally as they ordered dinner. Sophia shared stories about difficult customers at the gallery and her tiny apartment she shared with 2 roommates. James found himself laughing more than he had in months, drawn to her unguarded enthusiasm about life. You're not what I expected, Sophia admitted, twirling pasta around her fork. Riley said you were quiet and serious, but you're actually really easy to talk to. James felt a pang of guilt but pushed it aside. You're easy to talk to as well. Tell me more about your art. Sophia's face brightened as she described her latest project, a series of paintings capturing the energy of New York street life. James watched her animated gestures, the way her eyes sparkled when she talked about her dreams. She was unlike anyone in his usual social circle, women who were polished and calculating, always aware of his net worth. I probably sound crazy, talking about art like it's going to change the world, Sophia said, blushing slightly. Not at all. Passion is rare, James replied sincerely. Most people are just going through the motions. Their conversation was interrupted when Sophia's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, her face falling slightly. Oh no, everything okay? James asked. It's from David, the real David. He's been waiting at table 14 this whole time. Sophia's cheeks flushed red as the realization hit her. I am so embarrassed. You're not David, are you? James shook his head, his expression gentle. No, I'm James. Sophia buried her face in her hands. This is mortifying. I just spent an hour talking to a complete stranger, thinking he was my blind date. I'm so sorry. Don't apologize, James said quickly, surprising himself with how much he meant it. This has been the most enjoyable evening I've had in a long time. Sophia peeked through her fingers, meeting his eyes. There was something sincere in his gaze that made her heart skip. Really, really, James confirmed. Would it be too forward to ask if we could do this again? Intentionally this time, a smile slowly spread across Sophia's face. I'd like that. They exchanged numbers, both feeling an unexpected connection that neither had planned for. As Sophia gathered her coat, she paused at the table. Thank you for being so kind about my mistake, James. Most people would have corrected me right away. Sometimes, the best things happen by accident, he replied, standing to help her with her coat. As Sophia left the restaurant, she glanced back once, catching James's eye through the window. He He raised his hand in a small wave, and she felt butterflies in her stomach. She had come expecting to meet David from accounting, but instead found herself intrigued by the mysterious James, who worked in technology and had the kindest eyes she had ever seen. James watched her disappear into the crowd, already planning their next meeting for the first time in years. He was excited about getting to know someone who had no idea about his wealth or status. In Sophia's eyes, he was just James, and that felt like the most valuable thing in the world. Growing connection. 3 weeks had passed since their accidental meeting, and James found himself counting the hours until he could see Sophia again. They had been meeting regularly at small cafes and quiet parks, places where James could blend in without drawing attention to his status. He had grown addicted to her laughter and the way she saw beauty in the ordinary. On a crisp Saturday morning, they met at a local farmer's market in Brooklyn. Sophia wore a simple sundress and sneakers, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She looked radiant in the morning sunlight, completely unaware of how she made James's heart race. "I can't believe you've never been to a farmer's market," Sophia teased, pulling him toward a vendor selling fresh flowers. "This is like essential New York experience." James smiled, watching her examine a bouquet of sunflowers. "I usually have my assistant handle food shopping." "Your assistant?" Sophia raised an eyebrow. "Fancy software developer." James felt that familiar twist of guilt in his stomach. Something like that. They wandered through the market, Sophia introducing him to vendors she knew by name. She bought ingredients for homemade pasta, insisting that cooking together would be their next adventure. James had eaten at the world's finest restaurants, but the thought of a simple meal in Sophia's kitchen excited him more than any dining experience. "Tell me about your family," Sophia said as they sat on a bench, sharing a bag of fresh strawberries. James hesitated. His family was complicated, filled with old money expectations and social obligations. "Not much to say. My parents live in Connecticut. We're not particularly close." "That's sad," Sophia said softly. "Family should be your safe place. My parents died when I was young, but I have amazing memories of them. They always supported my art, even when it seemed impractical." The honesty in her voice made James's chest tighten. He wanted to tell her everything about his trust fund, his company, his penthouse apartment. But every time he tried, he imagined the look in her eyes changing, the way everyone looked at him once they knew. "What about you?" he asked instead. "Any siblings? Just me? That's why I'm so close with my roommates. Riley and Jessica are like the sisters I never had." Sophia leaned against his shoulder naturally, and James felt his world shift. "They're dying to meet you, by the way. Riley especially, since she's convinced she's a matchmaker extraordinaire." James tensed slightly. Meeting her friends meant more people who might recognize him, more chances for his secret to come out. "Maybe soon," he said vaguely. That afternoon, Sophia took him to her neighborhood, a diverse area in Queens filled with small shops and family-owned restaurants. They stopped at an art supply store where Sophia lovingly examined brushes and canvases she couldn't afford. "Someday," she murmured, running her fingers over a set of professional-grade paints. "When I'm a famous artist." James made a mental note of the exact set, already planning to surprise her. Then he caught himself. Grand gestures would only raise questions he wasn't ready to answer. They ended up in Sophia's apartment, a cozy space she shared with 2 roommates. The living room was cramped but warm, filled with mismatched furniture and Sophia's paintings covering every available wall space. James studied her work, genuinely impressed by her talent. "These are incredible, Sophia. You should be in galleries someday," she repeated, but this time with less conviction. "The art world is tough. It's not what you know, it's who you know." James bit back his response. He knew gallery owners, collectors, influential people in the art world. One phone call could change her entire career trajectory, but doing so would expose who he really was. They cooked dinner together, Sophia teaching him to make pasta from scratch. James had never done anything so domestic, and he found himself enchanted by the simple pleasure of creating something with his hands alongside someone he cared about. "You're surprisingly good at this for a tech guy," Sophia observed, watching him knead the dough. "Hidden talents," James replied, trying to keep his tone light. Riley arrived home as they were eating, and James felt his stomach drop. He had been dreading this moment, knowing that more people meant more opportunities for his cover to be blown. "So you're the mysterious James," Riley said, settling into a chair with a curious smile. "Sophia talks about you constantly." "Riley," Sophia protested, blushing. "It's true. James this, James that. She's completely smitten." Riley winked at James. What do you do again? Software development. James replied, the lie becoming easier each time. Cool. My boyfriend works in tech, too. Maybe you know him, David Kim. He's at Morrison Digital. James's blood ran cold. Morrison Digital was one of his company's subsidiaries. David Kim reported directly to one of his vice presidents. Doesn't ring a bell, he managed to say. The evening continued pleasantly, but James felt the walls closing in. Every question, every casual inquiry about his life felt like a potential landmine. When he finally left Sophia's apartment, he sat in his car for several minutes, wrestling with his conscience. His phone rang, displaying his assistant's name, Mr. Wellington. The Forbes interview has been rescheduled for Monday morning. They want to discuss your latest acquisition and your appearance on the Young Billionaires list. James closed his eyes, the weight of his double life pressing down on him. Cancel it. Claire, reschedule for next month, sir. This is the third time you've postponed. The publicity department is concerned about your profile. I said, cancel it. James snapped, then immediately regretted his tone. I'm sorry, Claire, I just need more time. As he drove back to his penthouse, James knew he was living on borrowed time. Sophia deserved the truth, but he had fallen too deep to risk losing her now. He was caught between two worlds, the authentic connection he had found with Sophia and the reality of who he actually was. That night, he stood on his balcony overlooking the city, thinking about Sophia in her small apartment, probably painting by the window. She was creating art that came from her soul while he was living a lie. The contradiction felt unbearable, but so did the thought of losing her. His phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. Thank you for today. You make everything more beautiful. James stared at the message, his heart breaking and soaring simultaneously. Tomorrow he would see her again, and maybe tomorrow he would find the courage to tell her the truth. But tonight, he allowed himself to pretend that James, the software developer, could be enough for the extraordinary woman who had accidentally walked into his life. Truth and Reconciliation, the annual Harmony Foundation charity gala, was the social event of the season, bringing together New York's elite to raise money for underprivileged youth programs. Sophia had volunteered to help coordinate silent auction items, grateful for the small paycheck that would help with next month's rent. She moved efficiently through the grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel, arranging art pieces and checking bid sheets. The opulent setting felt like another world compared to her usual environment. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across marble floors, while guests in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos mingled with champagne flutes in hand. Sophia smoothed her simple black dress, the nicest outfit she owned, feeling like an imposter among such wealth and sophistication. Ladies and gentlemen, the event coordinator's voice echoed through the ballroom. We are honored to welcome our keynote speaker and the evening's most generous patron, Mr. James Wellington, CEO of Wellington Technologies. Sophia looked up from the auction table she was organizing, her world tilting on its axis. Walking onto the small stage with confident strides was James. Her James, but this version of him commanded the room with an authority she had never seen. His tuxedo was perfectly tailored, his presence magnetic as applause filled the air. Wellington Technologies has pledged $5 million to expand educational programs in underserved communities, he began, his voice carrying easily through the microphone. Sophia's hands trembled as she gripped the edge of the table. $5 million, CEO Wellington Technologies. She recognized the company name from business headlines, knew it was worth billions. Her mind raced, trying to reconcile the man on stage with the humble software developer she had been dating. For 2 months, James's speech continued, discussing innovation, social responsibility, and giving back to communities. He was articulate, commanding every inch, the successful businessman. When his eyes swept across the crowd, they found hers across the room. His confident expression faltered for just a moment, a flash of panic crossing his features before he regained his composure. Sophia felt sick. Everything made sense now. The expensive restaurants he insisted on paying for, claiming he got corporate discounts, his perfectly tailored clothes that he said were hand-me-downs from his cousin, the way he always seemed to have cash, never worrying about prices. How could she have been so naive? When the speech ended and the crowd dispersed for dinner, Sophia slipped away from her volunteer duties. She needed air, space, to process the magnitude of James's deception. She found herself on a quiet terrace overlooking Central Park, the cool evening air helping to clear her head. Sophia, his voice came from behind her, tentative and cautious. She turned slowly, taking in his appearance. Even in the dim lighting, he looked every inch the billionaire he apparently was. James Wellington, she said, his full name feeling foreign on her tongue. Not James the software developer. I can explain, he said, stepping closer. Can you? Sophia's voice was steady, but tears threatened at the corners of her eyes. Because I'm trying to understand how someone lies so completely for 2 months. Every story, every detail about your life, was any of it real? James ran a hand through his hair, his usual composure cracking. My feelings for you, everything between us, that was all real, more real than anything I've experienced in years. But everything else was a lie. Sophia hugged her arms around herself. Your job, your background, your family situation. Do you even have parents in Connecticut? Or was that fabricated too? They exist. They live in Connecticut. But you're right about everything else. James's voice was quiet, filled with regret. When you sat down at that table and thought I was someone ordinary, it felt like a gift. For once, someone was seeing me for who I am, not what I'm worth. Sophia laughed bitterly. But I wasn't seeing who you are, was I? I was seeing a character you created. The real James Wellington is standing right here, and I don't know him at all. You do know me, James insisted, moving closer. The man who loves listening to you talk about your art, who thinks you're the most incredible person he's ever met, who looks forward to your texts more than anything else in his day. That's who I really am. That's who you are when you're pretending to be poor, Sophia shot back. What happens when I meet your real friends? When I see how you actually live? Will you be embarrassed by the waitress who paints in her spare time? Never, James said fiercely. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. Sophia shook her head, tears finally spilling over. I can't do this, James. I can't be with someone who thought I was so shallow that I'd only care about money. You didn't even give me a chance to prove that I could love you for who you really are. I was protecting what we had, James pleaded. No, you were protecting yourself. And you made that choice for both of us. Sophia wiped her eyes, trying to compose herself. I need to go back inside and finish my job. Please don't follow me. She walked away, each step feeling like it took tremendous effort. Behind her, she heard James call her name once, but she didn't turn round. She spent the rest of the evening mechanically performing her volunteer duties, her heart breaking with every breath. The next few weeks passed in a blur of numbness and anger. Sophia threw herself into her art, painting with a fury that surprised her. Her canvases became explosions of color and emotion, raw expressions of betrayal and heartbreak. Riley and Jessica tried to comfort her, but Sophia couldn't bring herself to explain the full extent of James's deception. 1 month after the gala, Sophia received an unexpected call from the director of the Morrison Gallery, one of the most prestigious art spaces in Manhattan. Miss Chen, I've seen some of your recent work, and I'd like to discuss a potential exhibition. Would you be available to meet this week? Sophia was stunned. She had submitted her portfolio to Morrison Gallery over a year ago and never heard back. She agreed to meet, wondering how this opportunity had suddenly materialized. At the gallery meeting, the director, Margaret Morrison, was effusive in her praise. Your work has such emotional depth, such raw honesty. We'd like to offer you a solo exhibition next month. I don't understand, Sophia said carefully. My work hasn't changed significantly since I first applied here. Margaret's smile was knowing. Sometimes it takes the right person bringing work to our attention. A mutual friend spoke very highly of your talent. Realization dawned on Sophia. James Wellington, he's a significant patron of the arts. When he recommends an artist, we listen. Sophia felt a mix of gratitude and fresh anger. Even now, James was trying to manage her life, to fix things with his wealth and influence. She thanked Margaret politely and left without committing to the exhibition. That evening, she called James for the first time since the gala. Sophia, his voice was breathless, hopeful. Did you arrange the gallery showing? There was a pause. You deserved the opportunity. Your work is incredible. That wasn't your decision to make, Sophia said quietly. Just like keeping the truth from me wasn't your decision to make. I'm sorry, James said, and she could hear the sincerity in his voice. I've been sorry every day since that night. I miss you, Sophia. I miss us. Sophia closed her eyes, her resolve wavering. I miss you too, but missing someone isn't enough to build a relationship on. Then what is? Tell me how to fix this. Time, Sophia said finally. I need time to figure out if I can trust you again, and you need to figure out if you can be honest with me, completely honest, about everything. I can, James said immediately. I will, maybe, Sophia replied. But for now, I need space. She hung up and stared at her latest painting, a swirling, massive blues and grays that somehow felt like hope emerging from storm clouds. She had turned down the gallery exhibition, choosing to wait until she earned the opportunity on her own merits. But she hadn't closed the door entirely on James' love, she realized. Wasn't just about feelings. It was about trust, honesty, and choosing each other despite the complications. Whether she and James could rebuild that foundation remained to be seen. But for the first time since that night at the gala, Sophia felt like the future held possibilities beyond her heartbreak. 6 months later, as she prepared for her first legitimate gallery showing, earned through her own networking and persistence, Sophia still thought about James. She had seen tabloid photos of him at various social events, always alone, always looking somewhat lost despite his success. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Congratulations on your exhibition. You did it all on your own, just like you should have. I'm proud of you." Sophia stared at the message for a long time before typing back, "Thank you. Maybe someday we can talk. I'll wait as long as it takes," came his immediate reply. Sophia smiled, despite herself, tucking her phone away as she returned to preparing for the most important night of her career. Some stories ended with dramatic reconciliations, but real love, she had learned, was sometimes about patience, growth, and the hope that two people could find their way back to each other when the time was right. The future remained unwritten, full of possibilities as vast as the canvas she was about to display to the world. Moral of the story: authentic love requires complete honesty and trust. Deception, even with good intentions, destroys the foundation of real relationships. True connection happens when we have the courage to be vulnerable and show our genuine selves, trusting that the right person will love us for who we really are.